Learning the art of saying no can help you to bring clarity and focus to the things that matter most to you. However, these days, more and more people are veering towards burnout, taking on more than they can handle simply by not putting up positive boundaries. And if that sounds like you, stick around because I'm going to lead you through a very simple 3-step strategy so that you can start building up the positive boundaries that will mean you are able to bring a sense of focus to the things that matter most to you. So what even are boundaries? What is a positive boundary? What is the difference between having a boundary in your life and not having a boundary in your life? What significance can having positive boundaries bring to the quality of your life? Well, look, a boundary is simply this. It is a limit or an edge that defines something as separate from something else. That's the definition of a boundary, right? So why do we need to bring those into our life? Well, because if we are blurring boundaries, or if we have just gotten rid of the concept of boundaries in our life altogether and everything is feeding into itself, chances are we are taking on more than we can handle, or we are not giving the right bits of ourselves to any given task or area of our life. So the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, what do I actually need? That's number one in this strategy, is find out what you need in order to serve what you want to serve, your goals, your values. What do you need on a fundamental level? Now, that comes down to things like sleep, things like nutrition, things like a sense of connection. If we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is often a great place to start when looking at the kinds of things that we require in order to do our best, that base level, our physiological needs, things like food and shelter, we need to make sure that we're ticking all the boxes. Now, that may seem super obvious, and yet when we are not practiced at putting up positive boundaries, we can start to, for example, skip out meals because we've taken on too much work, or cut down on sleep because we've overcommitted. If that sounds familiar to you, then stick around so that I can empower you with this very easy 3-step strategy. And what we're doing to begin with is just understanding what our needs actually are. Take a piece of paper, start writing them down. What do you need in order to give your best? Some people are really firm on this. Some people know, I need 8 hours of sleep every night if I'm going to be able to pull all the stops out at work during the day. Or I need to make sure that I'm getting 3 well-balanced meals every day. Now, whether or not that's actually happening, that's a different story. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. But you need to understand what for you is important in terms of being able to deliver your best every day. And once you've got an idea of that, of what you need in your life in order to be able to go out there and deliver, then we can start to look at how you're going to make sure that you're getting those things. Remember, it's not just about shelter. It's not just about food. It's not just about sleep. It is also about, for example, connection. Do you need to make sure that you are connecting with certain people every day because that gives you a boost of fuel or solidifies your sense of self? Do you need time when you are just on your own to make sure that you are reflecting on your own thoughts and not just receiving other people's thoughts all day? This definitely requires a sense of self-awareness, and chances are you may be, if you're struggling with some of the things that we talked about right at the beginning of this video, of having those blurred boundaries, of not always saying no, of making too many commitments, then that level of self-awareness, we just need to open it up a little bit. So take that time, make that list. What are the things that you need in order to bring your best self forward every day? Once you've got that list, then it's about looking at what's actually going on in your life and determining how often you're satisfying those specific needs. So if you know that you operate best with 8 hours sleep every night, but you're getting like 4, 5, maybe 6 hours of sleep every night, then of course you're not able to bring your best self forward. But chances are you're still putting the same demands on yourself. So bringing awareness to that situation is where we start. Now, this is not about self-blame. It's not even about self-judgment. It's just about looking at the picture of what's going on. If you're frustrated, and this is what I talk to a lot of people about right now, is that they're feeling frustrated that they are not doing better, that they're not achieving more, that they're not succeeding in whatever area of their life. Like they're not showing up for their kids all the time, or they're not showing up for their boss all the time, or they're not even going after those dreams. They put them on that shelf for someday and they're not getting any closer to them. Take away the self-judgment and just look at what's actually going on, and then we can start making some positive changes. So once you've decided what it is you actually need, which may take some time for you to really dig deep and figure out what makes you tick, what's important to you in order to bring your best self forward, then you look at your life in actuality and figure out how much of that you're getting and how much you're not getting. So what needs are not being met regularly. And once you've got that picture, then we're ready to start putting in place some positive boundaries, because we need to imagine it like a field, and the field is divided up into the things that you need, and you need to put up fences to protect those needs. Now, there's all sorts of other things that you can bring into that field. It's not like we can only protect those needs and we don't bring anything else into it, but by protecting those needs to start with, then we can see what bandwidth we have for taking on whatever we want to take on. So what I'm not saying here is that we just say no to everything that isn't about satisfying those needs, because how would we ever build new opportunities into our life? Or how would we ever spot areas that could grow or ways in which we could expand? But in order to be able to bring our best self forward, in order to avoid burnout, in order to develop the stamina to keep going, to be able to achieve your goals, we got to make sure that those needs are being satisfied on a day-to-day basis. So when you are able to put up those boundaries around those specific needs, then you need to move on to the third step of this, which is communicating those boundaries to the people in your life. So whether that is people that you work with, whether that is people, your partner or your family, being able to say, no, this is one of my boundaries. This is where I need to protect this. So I'm not going to go out on Friday night, even though, so-and-so is only in town this week or whatever it might be for you, right? I'm not going to do this because it would mean that I'm not satisfying this particular need. And if I don't satisfy this particular need, then I'm not going to be able to put my best foot forward the next day, whatever your reality is. Now, it should be said that these needs are going to constantly be evolving. So in certain times in our life, we might have one set of needs and the parameters of those needs might be one thing, but then as we move through life, they may change. If you've ever had small children, you'll know that you can operate on far less sleep than you ever thought you could before children. So these needs are going to change, and we do have to constantly be assessing which ones we need to protect at any given point. By being aware of what those needs are in the first place, that's when we can start to make negotiations. But the negotiation should always be a personal negotiation, not negotiations with other people. So that is where those boundaries are really important, because when you are aware of what you're willing to sacrifice in one area in order to put more attention or focus in another area, then you'll know what you can give to another person, another project, another focus. So once you are able to communicate that to the people in your life, we move on to the next part of that step 3 of that communication is stay firm with that. What I hear happening more and more is that people are saying this soft no. They'll say no to begin with and then back down, and that no becomes a yes. And we all have to manage and navigate through the guilt of letting someone down, or the desire to do more in order to prove ourselves. So by putting it into a bigger context and knowing that actually if these needs aren't met, then it doesn't matter how fleeting this approval might be, I'm not going to be able to sustain this in the long term. So by starting from a place of assessing your personal needs and the kind of non-negotiables, then you can start to put up those boundaries, communicate those boundaries to other people, and stay firm with those boundaries, knowing that the boundaries are actually protecting your ability to serve your goals better, which may in fact mean that you're serving those people better in the long run. So while in the short term, it may feel like you've let someone down by not being able to take on that extra commitments, in the long run, you're going to be able to show up more and give more focus, give more of who you are to the things that matter